Hey guys, welcome back to Lucas Narration channel. Lucas here, and today we're checking out 2 stories from the Relationship Advice subreddit. And if you love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting the like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, as it really helps out. Now let's crack on with today's story. So, our first story today comes from a Reddit user who goes by the name ThroWRA2Tukins. She says, "My husband, male 35, thinks I, female 32, baby trapped him despite the baby being planned, please help. My husband, male, 35 years old, and I, female, 32 years old, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door and we just clicked, it was like a fairy tale. One thing I have always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another, although now my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend, Jeff, male, 34 years old, has been baby trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, female 32 years old, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship and only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic because he feels that he has made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been really rattled by this. I am currently 4 months pregnant with our first, and my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down, so I told him that we have already been married for 7 years and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already is. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping and that my intentions were clearly not pure given how I was acting as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should talk about this in the morning. Today I woke up and my husband was gone, but I did have a nasty text from his brother, male, 28 years old, saying that I had forced my husband into this pregnancy despite it having been a joint decision. My husband is missing in action and not responding to calls or texts, and now I am wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. What do you think about this story? If you were OP, what should you do? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you are curious about what people online discuss in the comments, let's check it out. In the comments, there are many different ideas about this story. Some believe OP may have concealed important details, providing an incomplete picture of the situation. Maybe the husband didn't want to have a baby, while others speculate that the husband was terrified and possibly regretful about becoming a father. We're starting in the comments with one user asks, question. You say the baby was planned, but when your husband asked you if you baby trapped him, all you say as a justification is we've been married 7 years and not dude we agreed to try for a baby. Sounds like you baby trapped him. Another user agrees with that idea, saying, yeah, I'm struggling to understand this too. If it was planned and he knew it was planned, his question would have been said jokingly on his end and he wouldn't have been upset she laughed. She never explains what conversations they had about planning this pregnancy. This user also shares the same idea, saying, yep, being married no matter the length of time is not a green light to stop your birth control without mentioning it to your partner, but it seems OP fails to grasp this concept. She seems to think men are baby trapped to force them into marriage and can't occur anymore if he already married her. The most downvoted comment from this Reddit user says, so your husband had a serious question and even after he proved he was serious, you still didn't give a serious answer. And you are surprised that he is currently not wanting to talk to you. If you were troubled by something and had a serious question for him and he was joking around and flippant with his answers, wouldn't you want space from him to gather your thoughts? Now he shouldn't have disappeared how he has. Going for a walk or a drive or to the pub or bar for a drink should be enough time to work through most of it. You should have said, we have been married for 7 years and this pregnancy was planned by both of us. Why would you think a decision made by both of us is trapping you? When you get around to talking to your husband again, try not to be flippant with serious questions when obviously he is dealing with something troubling. But some Reddit users think differently. One supports OP and says, weird take, but I think he's getting cold feet on the pregnancy and this is a way to save face. Next commenter says, same. This is his way to get out without him looking like a total asshat for abandoning a pregnant woman. This user adds, maybe, or he's realized he doesn't want a baby and is using this stupid scenario to make her seem like the bad one. This running off without a word and sending in the flying monkeys is so cowardly and pathetic. If I was Opie, I wouldn't accept him back unless he does some serious therapy and gives a public apology, considering he's already making things public. Whatever stupid story he's concocted, Opie comes out of it looking like a terrible person. Opie feels thankful when reading nice comments and advice from the online community. Quickly in the same day, Opie does give us an update. Not sure if I am allowed to post here again, but I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly, but I have read every single comment and message. I am very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right. I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't really register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry, but I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, I called my best friend, female, 31 years old, who has been such a rock in my life. She came over with some chocolate and was furious when she heard. She called her husband, male, 34 years old, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He is a family lawyer, and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man is a saint and will draw up divorce papers on Monday. My mother-in-law, female, 66 years old, showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My mother-in-law said that he had showed up at theirs late last night, saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up as if he is some kind of hero. I roll. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I am ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he will find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I am sure it will be bad. For now, I am exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend has said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I have also made an appointment with a therapist for next week, but for now I just need to rest. I am exhausted and devastated that my marriage has come crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. As people online were curious about what happened next and asked for an update, Opie came into another full update. Thank you to everyone for all the messages and kind pieces of advice. I have received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I am doing. Overall, everything has settled a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with the doctor, my mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I am having a little girl. I am over the moon. My mother-in-law was a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She is very excited to be a granny. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law, male, 70 years old, and mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears, saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust one had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point-blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally, I am a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said that this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic and suddenly I am throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and he was stressed, but my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, in all the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my mother-in-law stood by what she had said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we married and it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he is staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I am making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for my baby and I and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own. My best friend has been around all weekend and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel much calmer and like I am making the right decision. I will update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now let's move on to the second Reddit story from a Reddit user who goes by the username Beautiful Boy. The story titled, "My boyfriend says really mean things to me in his sleep." Short brief, my boyfriend, 25-year-old male, yelled at me, 25-year-old female, in his sleep, calling me annoying because I attempted to wake him up to get my blanket back. I need to preface this by saying that when my boyfriend is awake, he is wonderful and I couldn't be happier. We laugh and joke all day and spending time with him in general is truly a joy. Yes, I mean this. No, he doesn't upset me at all when he's awake. Also, for some background, he works night shifts at a job he really hates, so when he comes home, he likes to just relax and unwind, usually with whiskey or beer. Typically we cuddle or I massage his back and legs until he's drunk enough to fall asleep. Edit. He doesn't need alcohol to fall asleep. I worded this wrong. He can fall asleep fine without it. I just meant that the alcohol makes him fall asleep quicker than usual. I have insomnia, so I usually end up staying awake for a while after he falls asleep. I'm also really sensitive to aggressive tone of voice due to some past trauma. He only really talks in his sleep if I shift too quickly or try to move him over a little bit if I have no room on the bed or if I move the blanket too much and it disturbs him. He usually snaps at me saying, "Quit effing moving," or "Can you please effing stop," or "Oh my effing god," just things in general that give off an indication that he's really annoyed with me. There's also been a couple unprompted times where he's stirred or rolled over, I guess disturbing his own sleep, and said things like, "I can do better than this," etc. Because of my sensitivity, I usually end up crying over these things. I try to make it a point not to bring up the things he says or does in his sleep unless they're funny, which sometimes happens because, for one, I really don't think he can control it, and two, when I have brought up things he said, he always ends up feeling horribly guilty for the things he says, and that makes me feel guilty for saying anything. Last night, in his sleep, he ripped my blanket away from me. We sleep with separate blankets because this has been an issue in the past, and tucked it under himself and his own blanket. It was really cold in the room, so I tried to take it back, but he grabbed my hand and shoved it away. I didn't want to have to wake him up, but he's a lot stronger than me and no matter what I tried to do, I just couldn't get the blanket back. I shook him gently and kept saying, "Baby, can you please give me back my blanket?" I was met with sleepy grunts, but he still wouldn't give it back. Finally, after a little persistence, he sat up really quickly and yelled, "What do you want?" "Jesus, you're annoying." I said, "I just want my blanket back, please." He shoved it towards me and nearly knocked me off the bed and then instantly laid back down and started snoring. I didn't sleep at all last night because of this. It's really eating at me. I really don't want to be annoying to him, especially when he's trying to rest after work. But I also don't know how I can keep putting up with this. Part of me wonders if he actually means any of the things he says. When he woke up this morning, I couldn't bring myself to say anything about it, but I also couldn't look him in the eye. I guess my question in this is, am I being too sensitive? Should I bring this up to him? I don't know how much that would accomplish because he usually has no recollection of it and doesn't know how to control it. What can I do to keep my sensitivity from affecting our relationship and the way I see him or myself? Dang, that's a tough situation. Your boyfriend seems like a sweetheart when he's awake, but the whole talking and reacting in his sleep is throwing a wrench in things. You're not being too sensitive. Anyone would feel hurt by those comments, even if they're said unconsciously. It's understandable that it's messing with your sleep and emotions. Maybe try having a calm, non-confrontational chat with him when he's fully awake. Let him know how his sleep talk is affecting you and that you want to figure out a solution together. What do you guys think? Do you think Opie overreacted? Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment below. And now let's see what people online think about this story. The most upvoted comment is from this user who says, "That's so weird, I really don't know what to make of it. However, you should definitely keep talking to him about this. Maybe even seek medical help because there is something going on during his sleep. One thing for sure, this is not your fault. You're not being annoying, you just want to sleep comfortably without being cussed at. So don't feel bad about this, don't feel bad about laying this on him because he is causing it. Whether consciously or not, he is causing you a lot of pain and that needs to be fixed. And you can't fix something you don't really know is going on." Another commenter adds, "This sort of extreme hostility whilst asleep can be a symptom of hyperarousal, for example, stress, pain, anything that causes too much adrenaline or cortisol in the blood. I've known people who did it and were genuinely mortified and deeply apologetic for their behavior but couldn't stop it, and ones who were happy to use it as a convenient excuse for their shitehawk tendencies. I hope that he's not the latter. Maybe see if sleeping apart works for you. He gets the Murphy bed, you stay in the real one to get you some rest as well, and ask him to investigate what's going on. If it's a real problem that he wants to fix, he'll probably want to get help so as to not hurt you. If he's just being an a-hole, he'll probably push back and insist that you should keep sharing a bed. You're definitely not the problem here, you're not being annoying, you're in a difficult and terrible situation." Because many people incorrectly accused Opie's husband of being an alcoholic and abusive, she returned to clarify that these accusations were wrong. She said, "First, I'd like to address the comments accusing my boyfriend of being an alcoholic, being abusive, accusing me of lying about how happy I am in the relationship, or claiming he wasn't actually asleep during this and wanted an excuse to abuse me. Y'all are, and really I cannot stress this enough, effing crazy. What a leap. He functions just fine without alcohol and I've seen him go weeks without it. He doesn't need alcohol to fall asleep. He drinks after work because that's how he likes to unwind. The same as one might go to a bar on the weekend. And for those of you with anecdotes about how your partners started off like this before leading into full-on abuse, I am deeply sorry that you endured that and I wish healing on all of you. But that's not what this is. I've known my boyfriend for 10 years. He doesn't have an abusive bone in his body. On to the update. Shortly after I made this post, I asked him if he thought I was annoying. He said of course not and asked me what prompted the question. When I brought up what he did in his sleep, he got very quiet for a short while and then asked, "Why didn't you slap the shit out of me?" which made me chuckle quite a bit. He then went on to say that he would prefer I tell him about the things he says in his sleep, stressing that if he crosses a line like that ever again I have full permission to smack the life out of him. I never would. I asked him if it was a possibility that the alcohol was making his sleep more restless and he said maybe, I don't know. I then asked him if it would be a possibility to try going a couple nights without alcohol and he agreed. Since then, our co-sleeping has been wonderful, restful, and peaceful except for the night before last. He shook me awake while I was sleeping and I asked him what was up. Baby, I'll show you." I had no idea what he was talking about so I asked him. He said, "I'll show you." I said, "Baby, are you still asleep?" "Yeah. I'll show you." He instantly started snoring again. I must have giggled myself back to sleep. Anyways, I wanted to thank everyone for the kind advice and we've decided to cut alcohol out before bed as it seems to help immensely. Bless. 3 years later, Opie came back and did give us a final update in a new post. She said, Hi, it's me again. Going back and reading these posts was insanely difficult. I want to kick myself for how deep in denial I was. Everyone in the comments was telling me that my boyfriend is an alcoholic and I fought so hard against that. But it was true. A few months after my last post, I had an epiphany moment. It was 3 a.m. and he was drunk. He begged me to make him a pot of spaghetti because he liked the way I cooked it. I asked him if he would strain the pot for me because the pot we had didn't have thermal safe handles or whatever they're called, and I often would burn myself trying to do it on my own. He grumbled for a bit and said fine. But after less than 5 minutes he said he was going to hang out in our bedroom. I begged him not to because he would fall asleep, and trying to wake him when he falls asleep drunk often became a nightmare of verbal abuse. He insisted he wouldn't fall asleep, but lo and behold, he did. I thought to myself, great. Now I get to choose between burning my hands or being berated until I cry all over a pot of effing spaghetti. I chose to burn my hands. I angrily made myself a plate and put the rest in a Tupperware, and reality hit. I'm just like my mom. My mom has been with an alcoholic for 13 years. He is awful to her in so many ways, but she puts up with it because A, she feels like she can't do any better, and B, she believes it's her duty as a wife to just deal with it quietly. And I was falling down the same path. I thought that if I could just grin and bear it, he'd see how much I love him and how much I do for him and realize that he needs to put in the same effort. Boy howdy was I effing wrong. I took off to a friend's house for the night and he panicked when he woke up in the morning and I wasn't there. He called me crying, begging me to return. I unleashed all my feelings in return and in more words told him that I didn't have much of an incentive to return and how could I know that he'd do better. His tears turned to anger and he screamed down the phone. It was terrifying. I ended up going back home to collect some things and told him that I needed to separate from him because I didn't know how to help him anymore, and as deeply as I loved him, I couldn't stay and watch him kill himself any longer. I'll never forget the look he gave me. It was like I had kicked him in the stomach. I stayed with my friend for a month or so with little to no contact with him. I ended up having to return to collect the rest of my stuff and I noticed something strange. He had always been kind of a slob, leaving empty beer and liquor bottles on the floor beside his bed, but when I returned, by the side of his bed were only tea, soda, and water bottles. His face was less sunken and he didn't smell like beer at all. When he went to the bathroom, I took a sneak peek in his garbage can just to be sure. It was full, but there were no signs of anything alcoholic. He caught me peeking and asked what I was doing. He then told me that he hadn't touched alcohol since the day I left. I was shocked. We ended up sitting and talking for a while. He said being sober was hard and he had the shakes all the time and he missed me. I missed him too. I've been infatuated with him since I was 13. Those feelings weren't going away anytime soon. To wrap things up for the sake of character count, we ended up getting back together. He celebrates 2 years of sobriety this week. I'm so proud of him. He sleeps restfully now with the exception of a mumble here or there in his sleep and is no longer mean to me in any facet. Also, we're engaged now. Thanks for reading. I'm sorry I fought you guys so hard and thank you for telling me the truth even though I wasn't ready to hear it. What do you guys think about Opie's situation? If you were in her shoes, what would you have done? Share your opinions in the comments section below. Before we wrap up, I just want to say once again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Your support is the driving force behind this channel and I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. If you enjoyed our today's Reddit stories, why not consider hitting the like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell too, as it will alert you when I return with another story. And now see ya.